Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Today's video will feature the new Rose Quartz MISTI from scrapbook.com and also their cozy pattern paper. There's a new MISTI color available. This is the Rose Quartz color and it's designed exclusively for scrapbook.com. The Rose Quartz color is also available only in the original MISTI size. I love the mini size, but I also use the original MISTI quite a bit. It's also nice to have multiple MISTIs. I've done videos before where I have 4 or 5 of my MISTIs all loaded up. It's perfect if you're making multiples of the same card using a pretty layered stamp. You can have one of the stamp layers in each of the MISTIs and make a ton of cards. The new Rose Quartz MISTI is the newer version. It includes one bar magnet, and these are really strong magnets. There's a storage area on the left side of the MISTI. I think I used my MISTI upside down. It's pictured the opposite way on the box, but it works either direction. The cover also has the indentation, so it's much easier to open. I still have one of the earlier MISTI editions, and it doesn't have that little lift tab for the cover, and it really makes a difference. The pattern paper I'll be using today is from scrapbook.com. This is their cozy collection. It's available in A2 size and also 6x8. I'll be using the A2 size. It's nice that they have their pattern paper available in 2 different sizes since not everyone makes A2 size cards. The paper pads include 40 sheets, 5 of each pattern. And it's a nice heavyweight cardstock. I'll also be using a variety of stamps and dies from scrapbook.com. The stamp set is Cozy Sentiments and Critters, and some of the sentiments line up with their Grateful Sentiments word dies. The other die sets I'm using are the Fox, Cozy Foliage, Autumn Leaves, and also Sunflower. For solid cardstock, I'm using an assortment of scrapbook.com's smooth cardstock collections. I have Harvest, Boho, Neutrals, and I'll use just a tiny bit of their mixed metals. Not sure why I just showed 2 of the Harvest cardstock. So let's go ahead and get started with card design number 1. I will be using some card sketches for inspiration. The first sketch is from Freshly Made Sketches. This is number 593. And if you are interested in any of the sketches I use in this video, I share all of that information on my coordinating blog post. That link is provided in the description box below, or you can simply head over to KristieMarcotte.com. For the background of my card, using a dark orange and brown polka dot paper, adding a panel of this beautiful pumpkin design, layering everything on some brown cardstock. I believe this brown is from the Neutrals collection. I'll put adhesive on the back, add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. For my cardstock layers, I generally add an additional 1/8 of an inch. Now I'll start working on the sentiment. I'll pull out the Rose Quartz MISTI. I'll also be using one of scrapbook.com's multi-use mats. This is the standard size and it fits perfectly inside the original MISTI. It's tacky on one side. You just need to remove the clear cover. And it's super useful when you need to stamp on a die cut shape. I've already cut out the outline for the word thankful. I'll place the negative piece and also the die cut back into my MISTI, and everything will stay in place with that tacky mat. Then I'll add the sentiment stamp thankful. The ink color is Dark Chocolate by scrapbook.com. It's one of my favorite browns. And I almost forgot to show this tool. This is by LDRS Creative. It's their Stampendable tool in the new Rose Quartz color. It helps you apply even pressure when using a MISTI. And I love the new Rose Quartz color to match the MISTI. Using the outline die, I cut out a second piece from some dark brown cardstock, and I'll layer the sentiment on the outline piece, creating a slight drop shadow of that dark brown color. I'm using Barely Art glue, and if you aren't aware, scrapbook.com now carries it. I like to use the mini size. It's a little easier to handle, although I do have to refill it more often. I will be popping up the sentiment using some foam dimension. This is scrapbook.com's small circle size. I'll make sure to get good coverage, remove the release paper, and adhere it toward the bottom of the card. I've already gone ahead and cut out several die cut pieces. I have a few leaves, foliage piece, and also a pumpkin. The pumpkin is part of the Fox die set. There's two pieces, has the stem and then the main portion of the pumpkin, and I love the etch detail. After assembling the pumpkin, I will be popping it up using some foam dimension. This time I'm using Spellbinder's white foam square mix, the 1 millimeter size, so it's not quite as thick as the small foam circles I use behind the sentiment. The cute little tray I had all my die cuts in is by scrapbook.com. It's their sort and stack tray. Perfect for organizing your die cuts or embellishments. On the back of the 2 leaves and the 1 foliage piece, I did add 1 foam circle. On the bottom, I'll add some glue. I did tear off the stem of each of those pieces since I don't want it hanging underneath the sentiment. I'll also cut off the very bottom portion of the pumpkin. That way I can tuck it in behind the sentiment and in front of the leaves and foliage. So there is my finished card, perfect for a thank you fall card. For card design number 2, I selected this beautiful brown plaid paper. I cut the piece to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. I'll layer it on some dark brown smooth cardstock. It's actually the backside of the yellow gingham pattern paper in the Cozy collection. I'll put adhesive on the back, add my card front onto a card base. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches. Now I'll stamp the sentiment hello. I have a piece of white cardstock in my MISTI, and I'm using the dark chocolate ink color. I will ink it up a few times to get a nice solid impression, and I'm also using the Stampendable tool to get the nice even pressure. The coordinating die for the sentiment is on the Fox die set. And it's fun that there's also the die for the word hello, so you have both options. To hold the die in place, I'm using scrapbook.com's mint tape. This card will be featuring the beautiful sunflower. The die set has 4 different dies. There's the larger sunflower, another piece that cuts out the narrow outline and the smaller petals. There's a die for the outline of the inside of the flower, and the very center piece adds a fun embossed detail. I'll first adhere the 2 center pieces of the flower. For the sunflower, I cut out 2 of the larger background pieces and 1 of the outline and the smaller petals. And I'll glue all 4 of those layers together, offsetting them just slightly so it creates lots of beautiful petals for the sunflower. I'm only putting glue in the very center, that way I can lift up those petals for some extra dimension. Once my sunflower is all assembled, I'll flip it over. I'll add some foam dimension on the back side. I was starting to add the small foam circles, but instead I'm cutting a small piece from the negative portion of the foam. Even the leftover areas of the foam can still be used. I'll remove the release paper, add my sunflower to the card. Using the outline of the hello word, I cut out a second piece from some brown cardstock. I'll adhere the 2 pieces together to create a fun brown drop shadow underneath the sentiment. Then I'll put glue on the back and adhere the sentiment underneath the sunflower. And I said brown cardstock, but it's actually pattern paper. Next, I'll add 2 leaves in the upper left-hand corner. I will pop up the very end of each of the leaves with the circle foam. Then I'll put glue on the bottom. And I did tear off the stems of the leaves so I could easily tuck them underneath the sunflower. Using scrapbook.com's clear glitter brush, I'll add a little bit of sparkle to the very center of the sunflower. And for a final finishing touch, I'm using Concord & Nine's Nutmeg enamel dots. I was so excited to find some brown enamel dots, and they also have several varieties in gray. So there is my finished card. I love how this one turned out. I'm a big fan of sunflowers, and this die set is beautiful. For card design number 3, the card sketch is from MFT. This is number 656. I selected this beautiful fall foliage pattern paper, and I'm layering it on the back side of the pattern paper. The colors coordinate beautifully. I did cut a wider piece for the matted layer. The pattern paper is 2 3/4 by 4 inches, and the matted layer is 3 inches by 4 1/4 inches. For the background of the card, I'm using one of the Neutrals cardstock colors. I'll put adhesive on the back and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. Next, I'll add a stitch circle die cut, and the die is from Sunny Studio. I'll adhere this circle down using some glue. I've already stamped out the sentiment, Happy Fall. The ink color I used is Gingerbread by Scrapbook.com. I'll cut a fishtail on the right and left side, put glue on the back, and adhere it underneath the circle die cut. Now I'll add a couple of leaves, and I will pop up the very end using some circle foam. I'll put glue on the bottom portion of each of the leaves and add both of them on the circle die cut, overlapping them slightly. And for a final finishing touch, I'm adding a gold sparkle bow. I'll adhere it at the bottom of the 2 leaves. And there is my finished card, perfect design for the fall season. The Cozy collection has so many beautiful fall designs. It's a good thing there's 5 of each. For card design number 4, the card sketch is from Cards TV. This is sketch number 42. I love this sketch and I use it all the time, so I thought this time I would make a vertical card instead of horizontal, still using this sketch idea. This floral paper is my favorite in the entire Cozy collection. So I selected a sketch where you'll be able to see lots of that beautiful design. I layered it on some brown pattern paper. You can see I did cut an oval out of the center, and I will be using the oval later on. For the narrow strip that goes across the card, adding this lovely orange and white floral paper. And instead of layering that on the same brown cardstock, I'm layering it on some vellum. It'll add just that subtle detail. For this card, I'll be adding the adorable fox image. I cut out the background from some white cardstock, and the fox does have a bushy tail, but I am trimming that off. I used 2 different shades of brown cardstock for the fox, the darker portion for the main body, and the lighter for the cheeks and the chest of the fox. The white background piece will all be covered up, so it really doesn't matter what color you use. It's just a guideline for adding all of the other pieces while you assemble the fox. Started with the main body, then the chest, add the fox's head, next the 2 sides of the face. The last pieces are the smallest, and the inside of the ears, and I use a light pink cardstock color. And for the nose and the eyes, I use some black cardstock. I'll add the nose first, then the inside of the ears. For many of the pieces, I am using a pair of reverse tweezers to hold them. For the eyes, I'm using an embellishment wand. I'll first add the small drop of glue, then the teeny tiny eye die cut on top. I was trying to flip over the eye die cut pieces since they were upside down in the tray. Now I'll adhere the fox onto the white oval. The very bottom of the fox will hang off the oval. Once I have the fox adhered, I'll flip over the oval, use my scissors to trim off the extra, trying to follow the same curve of the oval. Then I'll layer the white oval on the brown oval. The oval dies I'm using are from Waffle Flower. They have 2 different sets so you can get the perfect matted layer. I'll put glue on the back and add my oval on the left side of the card. For a sentiment, I've already stamped out Happy Fall, stamped it on some of the yellow cardstock. I'll cut a fishtail on the right side, put glue on the back and adhere it on the right side of the oval, tucking the very left side of the sentiment underneath the oval die cut. For embellishments, I'm using more enamel dots. These are from Alta New. It's their summer afternoon collection. Selected this lovely brown color that almost matches the brown on the fox. I'll put 3 on the right side, following the design of the card sketch, and also 2 in the lower left-hand corner. Then for a final finishing touch, I'll use a white gel pen and add a few highlights to the fox. So there is my finished card. Isn't that fox just adorable? Now moving on to card design number 5. The card sketch is from Sketch Saturday. This is number 732. For the background of my card, I selected this lovely green floral tone-on-tone pattern. I'll be layering it on a slightly lighter green cardstock color. For the large circle, I'm using the pattern paper with lots of beautiful hearts. I cut out a slightly larger circle from some light green cardstock. I'll adhere those 2 together. Then I'll put glue on the back and add my circle in the lower right-hand corner. The right and bottom side of the circle will hang off the edge. I'll flip over the panel, use my scissors to trim it off. For the narrow strip on the left side of the card, using more pattern paper from the Cozy collection. For the scallop border, this is a die from Sunny Studio. It's part of their ribbon and lace borders. It has a fun stitched edge. I'll adhere the 2 pieces together so you can see just a peek of the scallop on the left side. Then I'll adhere it on the left side of the card. I'll put adhesive on the back, add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. I'll be adding 2 fall leaves and also the pair of acorns. There are 2 pieces for the acorns. I love the detail for the top of the acorns. I'll adhere the 2 pieces together, put foam dimension on the back, and adhere it in the upper left-hand corner. Now I'll start working on the sentiment. I'm adding the word grateful. I've already cut out the outline. I've added the multi-use mat inside the MISTI. I've added the negative portion and also the outline for the word grateful. Then I'll line up the stamp. I'll ink it up using Scrapbook.com's dark chocolate ink color. I did stamp it a couple times to get a good solid impression. I'm also using the Stampendable tool to get that nice even pressure when stamping. Once I'm happy with this sentiment, I'll remove the negative portion and carefully remove this sentiment. I love how it doesn't move with the multi-use mat. And when you're done using the mat, make sure to replace the protective covering. I cut out a second outline piece, and this time I'm not creating a drop shadow. Instead, I'm adhering the 2 together just for some extra stability. Before adhering the sentiment to the card, I will add some scrap cardstock pieces, and I'm adding them in that little gap between the circle and the narrow strip on the left side. That way the sentiment stays nice and level, and the area behind the R doesn't dip down. I'll put glue on the back of the sentiment and adhere it to the card. Just part of the letter G will sit on that strip on the left side of the card. Now I'll add the 2 leaves. I have foam dimension on the back just at the very top of each of the leaves. For the brown leaf, I'll pull off the stem and tuck it underneath part of the U and L. Then I'll add the yellow leaf on top, and I did leave the stem on so you can see it between the letters U and L. For a final finishing touch, I'll add a little bit of sparkle to the images. I'm using the Glitter Champagne Pops of Color by Scrapbook.com. I'll add a few highlights of glitter on the acorns and also the ends of each of the leaves. Once it dries, it'll have this beautiful sparkle finish. So there is my finished card. I really like how this turned out. It's the first time trying this card sketch. I'll definitely be using it again. Now here's another look at the 10 cards I made using Scrapbook.com's Cozy pattern paper and also several of their fall stamp and die sets. I love making fall cards. I'm always excited as the season approaches. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links provided in the description box below. For a closer look at the cards and sketches I use, you can check them out on my blog, and I do have a link in the description box below. Here on YouTube, I'm limited to how much information I can include in the description box, so my blog is always a great source with lots of information. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.